Welcome to the Soul Archaeology podcast, a space for connection, resonance, witnessing, and learning. Together we'll harvest medicine from the spiral of life, sharing conversations with other embodied humans who have navigated their own initiations and found alignment with their true soul essence. With weekly astrology, energy updates, embodied conversation, and channeled teachings, this is a space for you to land and find resonance with the spiral of your own soul. Welcome back to Soul Archaeology. It's so wild to me that we are at the end of June and the beginning of July. Once again, a threshold. This year is a year of thresholds, and I've been sitting with this so much over the last few days, just realizing how much is unfolded for me personally, for us collectively in 2025. And we're only halfway through the year, but we are halfway through the year. And how wild is it that we are now transitioning into a new month where we've just begun a new lunar cycle. We had the new moon in Cancer last week, which was, wow, just such a huge point of reclamation for me personally. I know I talked a lot about that in the last episode, how this is the womb, the sacred womb. This is a space where we deepen, soften, return to the feminine, and find ways of reconciling our past and moving into the future with an integrated feminine. And this is much more sort of nuanced and layered and complex than just saying that we each individually need more feminine, because that's not the case, but it's us sitting with individually and collectively the ways in which we sort of suppress the feminine, where we avoid it internally. It was so wild because, I sit down every weekend and I channel these episodes for the week ahead. I'm always in astrology. I'm always in the energy. I'm working with many clients every week through their own evolutionary processes, but there's often these moments in my own personal life where the astrology really catches me catches me off guard, and it's always so fascinating. And we had the Jupiter Cazimi, and then we had the next morning, like really, really early on the 25th, we had the new moon in Cancer. And the day before, the 24th, felt really expansive for me. I was doing so much deep internal work and the spaces where I feel uncomfortable expanding. And then on the 25th, later that day, I just was hit with this wave of grief. And astrology is amazing. It doesn't lie. And I am always amazed by how accurate it is. I had this new moon on top of my Chiron, and I literally, that day on the 25th, was telling my partner I was fully in the fields. I was fully in it. And I was telling him that I just feel like I am unable to receive support. I'm unable to actually receive attunement. That I feel like I'm having this revelation that my entire life, what I've been craving most, which is emotional attunement, has been basically blocked by my ability to receive it. So I was hitting my heart wall quite literally in real time, expressing it, talking about it. I sat with it in meditation. I went into it somatically and realized it's exactly what I was talking about in the last episode. I was quite literally interacting with a heart wall, with a space within myself where I was not able to receive something I so desperately desired. It was a wall that I had created, honestly, long before coming into this lifetime, but that was reinforced through experiences in my childhood. And I was able to fully own it. I noticed these sort of very subtle victim patterns that I had, this victim consciousness around feeling that I never receive as much as I give. No one can ever meet me. I'm not seen. And I've known for a long time that those are just echoes of my inner child, this feeling of I'm not receiving what I need to without the, conscious capacity to understand where it's coming from. And now I, of course, know that there's a wound there that's preventing me from actually receiving it. But this is Chiron in Cancer. And I'm planning to do a whole Chiron episode because I do think that it's so rich and nutrient dense when we can work with our Chiron. I work with Chiron so much in my client work, and it's really, really helpful to understand and integrate your Chiron placement. But Chiron in Cancer, we have Jupiter in Cancer. It's in my 9th house. It's connected to work. So this is just quite literally astrology. So clear, playing out in real time, me interacting with it. So I tell you this story. I really don't love sharing personal things. I'm a Scorpio rising, but I know it's important to. And I share this because we all are moving through these parts and pieces. We're all interacting with this energy. I've done a lot of heart work. I've done a lot of work around my inner child, receiving love, but there are layers there. And I'm so grateful that I can work with it. I'm so grateful I have the tools and the resources to work with it. That night, I had one of the most profound breakthroughs I've ever had in my dream space. And I quite literally felt myself receiving love from Source, receiving love from the masculine, receiving love from this force that I had always resisted. And so much has unfolded since that day. So it's a magical time. It's an intense time. We're going to receive these waves. We're going to be in the work. But can you give yourself some space and some grace to be in it? I had to just chill that day. I really had to go inward. The universe actually created space for me too, which I was grateful for. And I was just in it. I felt it. I moved through it. I went for a walk. And what's cool is that on the other side of that experience, of me really opening to the feminine, this receptivity, this cracking open of a heart wall that has been there for a very, very long time, is that all of these downloads have come through around the feminine collectively that I want to share today. But first, I do want to mention that my course, Inner Compass, is available now. And this is something I have been working on for years, really 8 years since I began this work. When I first began really working with and applying astrology to my life, I was lucky enough to be introduced to the lunar nodes. And this is something that evolutionary astrology really focuses on and emphasizes because it tracks our karmic story through this lifetime. And it reveals where we've been and where we're headed in this life. I always say that the South Node is like our subconscious. It's shaped and formed by our lived experiences from this life, from childhood, from ancestry, from past lives. So it carries this imprint that we tend to default to. It can carry a lot of shadow as well, maybe the things we're here to release. And the North Node is this point that guides us. It's sort of our evolutionary North Star. And when we learn how to really work with these placements, it can be life-altering. I work with these with my clients. I work with these in my personal life. I work with these in my relationships. I work with my North and South Node daily personally. So this course goes deep into these placements. It goes through each and every North and South Node placement. So you can use it for yourself. You can use it for your clients if you're a space holder or a practitioner. You can use it for your own personal relationships. And it gives very in-depth, actionable ways to work with these placements in your own life, how to understand your own personal nodal story, and gain so much clarity around where you've been and where you're headed in this lifetime, the patterns you're releasing, the purpose you're here to really click into and embrace. This is a self-led course. You can take as long as you'd like to move through it. You have lifetime access to it. There are over 25 modules. There's a very in-depth workbook that comes along with it. There's a meditation. So this is a really powerful tool to utilize, especially now when there's so much happening in the world. I love using the North and South Node to really understand where I'm out of alignment. So I'm going to link this course in the show notes. There's also a link to a free evolutionary archetype guide as well, so you can learn what your evolutionary archetype is. If you've taken this course, let me know. I'd love to hear how it's landed for you. And then transitioning into the energy of this week, there's a lot happening. Mercury is opposing Pluto, which is retrograde in Aquarius, on July 3rd. Mercury is newly in Leo. It shifted last week. We're starting the week with the moon in Virgo, so there's a lot of truth telling. There's a lot of clarity that's going to come through. With Mercury opposite Pluto retrograde, this is a confessional transit. This is bringing unconscious material to the surface. This is revealing how weighty our words can be, our thoughts. Something hidden might be revealed this week, or some things might be revealed this week. Pluto is the planet of the underworld. Mercury is the messenger. Pluto is also retrograde, so it's even deeper. We're going into deeper layers of our unconscious spaces, our basement, our underworld. And Mercury in Leo, which is quite bold, is delivering the messages to us. So this is actually a helpful transit. It can be very confronting, but we need to see what's there. And the end of this month, we've had this wild and crazy month. It's been so fruitful, I think, for many of us. It's also been very confronting, but we've had a lot of movement. We've been able to actually birth some things. We've been able to create. We've been able to feel and experience the present moment, hopefully more in June. And we can really thank Venus for that. The new moon in Cancer was pressurized. Even the Jupiter Cazimi, which is a very auspicious event, it was layered with Saturn and Neptune and Aries. So we can thank Venus for any of the ease, the flow, the beauty, the presence, the fruit that we've bore from June. And then on July 4th, the birth date of the US, Venus conjoins with Uranus at the last degree of Taurus before they both shift this week. And then after that, on the same day, Venus moves into Gemini. And then later on July 4th, Neptune stations retrograde in Aries at 2 degrees. So this is a truth-telling breakthrough week. We're going to be witnessing what's dissolving, what's collapsing, and what's calling us inward, individually and collectively. We are very much at a threshold point. 2025 is a threshold year. We've known that it would be this way. It's a push and pull. We're crossing some thresholds. We're sitting at the beginning of others. We're even moving back and forwards across thresholds. All the outer planets are shifting into new signs within a year. That's a lot of change. And it's change that we might not be able to see, touch, feel, sense in real time. But it's change that has a profound impact on our lives, on our evolution as a species. Pluto, of course, shifted into Aquarius for 20 years. At the end of 2024, we've had Saturn and Neptune that shift into Aries. They'll be going back into Pisces later this year. On the 7th of July, we have Uranus shifting into Gemini. Jupiter entered Cancer, reminding us how important it is to honor the feminine work when we meet thresholds, integrating the feminine in our evolutionary processes. The feminine is change. It is evolution. It's death, rebirth, decay, growth. The female body quite literally has this mechanism installed. Every single month, we experience death and rebirth. And this feminine wisdom, and when I say feminine, I mean the feminine energy, is what we need now more than ever as we move forward as a species. I shared a post about how The sort of homogenization of architecture is quite literally decaying our sense of belonging. And it's so phallic. It's so masculine. It's these tall skyscrapers that are silver and forceful and aggressive, and they're always reaching for something. They're always wanting to go higher. They're always wanting to dominate the landscape. Whereas the feminine energy stays close to the earth. It stays in the underworld or right at the surface. It's communing with nature. It's communing with the earth. It's tilling the soil. It's befriending the darkness. It's using earth and materials. It's of this earth. It embraces death. It embraces decay. It embraces change in a way that's embodied rather than separate from what was. The feminine composts. It integrates the past so it can be reborn in a new way. And we need both of these energies so desperately. We need the container of the masculine to hold these evolutionary processes. But what's happening is there's an imbalance, and the feminine has not been integrated so that it can assist in the breakdown, the composting of what was. And I'm speaking to this because this is very much the energy that we're moving into this week, with Venus conjunct Uranus at the anaretic degree of Taurus. We are reaching the end of a story. This is where illusions are cracking, values are shifting, and truth is beginning to rise through the body, through the feminine. This week we have Neptune dissolving illusions. It stations retrograde in Aries on the United States birthday, July 4th. And this is beginning a slow, deep unraveling of the collective illusions we have around strength, identity, purpose. The last time Neptune was in Aries was during the Civil War in the United States. This is a really important week because it's starting to set the stage for what the next 6, 7, 8 months will look like until we have this reconvening of Neptune and Saturn in Aries together next spring at the 0 point. This is revealing this week. It's going to start revealing what work we still need to do with Pisces, with illusions, with truth. With Mercury opposing Pluto this week, it's also going to have us name the truths we've been avoiding and meet these emotional undercurrents that really shape our beliefs. These transits are really building towards the Saturn Neptune conjunction at 0 degrees Aries next spring. This is collapsing old myth as we slowly birth new truths, a new way, a new world. And this is where the feminine is so important because the feminine is communal. Think about midwives. Think about the red tent. Think about the ways in which we need to be in group and community, supporting one another through change, through evolution, through death, through birth, through these incredibly important thresholds. This is why I do the work that I do, holding women through transition, through change, through threshold work, through rites of passage. This is all just rich material that we need support through. We're not meant to do it alone. I think the skyscraper is a perfect metaphor for how our world has excluded the feminine, breeding narcissism, an over-identification with the self, with power, with success, with performance, and especially that new moon in Cancer last week, the Jupiter Cazimi in Cancer. It just feels like we are at a crisis point where we must integrate these feminine practices of community, support, integration, death, birth. I could just literally ramble on for days about this, and I can't because this is a podcast and I need to just articulate it. But And there's a beautiful book that I read years ago that really helped inform this idea of the exclusion of the feminine, and it's called If Women Rose Rooted, and it's a beautiful book that touches on belonging and the importance of the feminine in evolutionary work. But this week could be confronting. We might have to sit with the discomfort we have around thresholds, around change, around endings. Like I said, we are reaching the end of a karmic story, with Uranus and Venus conjunct at the final degree of Taurus. They're conjunct at this anaretic degree, which is 29 degrees. It's the final degree of a sign. It's referred to as the degree of mastery or crisis. It holds the intensity of a completion point. It holds urgency of what must be integrated before a new chapter begins, what we need to let go of, what needs to change, what needs to be revealed. As I was saying that, a car alarm went off outside, which I can't make up. And we have been dancing with the 29 degree point so much over the last year and a half, even 2 years. We, of course, had Pluto that was going back and over that point, the 29 degree point of Capricorn, before it shifted into Aquarius officially in November of 2024. Saturn and Neptune have both been dancing at that 29 degree point of Pisces. We will revisit it again at the end of this year. And now Uranus and Venus are meeting at 29 degrees of Taurus. And this point is a culmination point. I'd be interested to hear who has 29 degrees, especially of like a fixed sign in their chart, because you're going to feel a major breakthrough this week. It might be a revelation. It might be really uncomfortable. Uranus is not gentle necessarily. It can be abrupt. It can be jolting. It can be even offensive or ultra confronting. If you have a placement at 29 degrees, Taurus, Aquarius, Leo, or Scorpio, you're likely someone who is here to really master change, to understand it, to integrate it. You might have a lot of upheaval in your life. You might have had a lot of change, a lot of endings even. Really, if you have 29 degrees of any placement in your chart, there's this reckoning with change, this reckoning with confrontation, this reckoning with endings that needs to occur. So the last few years might have felt quite intense having these meetings of thresholds over and over again. I just completed my last training weekend for my advanced somatic practitioner training with alchemical alignment, and I was amazed by the undercurrents of endings that were in my psyche that I was moving through in this unconscious way. It just was me meeting my relationship with endings. And when we experience something collectively, right, when we're seeing so much change unfold in the world, when we know psychically, intuitively that things are ending in many different ways, many different levels, we know this. It can ping our own relationship with endings and change. We might feel a lot of grief. We might feel a lot of fear or discomfort, even anxiety, just not knowing what's on the other side of that change. So Uranus and Venus are meeting at this 29 degree point of Taurus. This is part of that larger ingress theme that we knew would come with a year where so many outer planets are shifting signs. So it's part of this greater ecosystem, this greater whole, this greater story around change and thresholds and endings and beginnings. Venus, quite literally on the same day, shifts into Gemini. And on the 7th, Uranus moves into Gemini. It will be in Gemini until November, and then it's going to officially land in Gemini in April of 2026 until 2033. And this conjunction that we have on the 4th is a massive turning point, both personally and collectively. Taurus is deeply associated with safety, stability, the material plane, We might get this psychic sense that something is about to change. The ground beneath us begins to shift. I'm going to do a whole episode on Uranus shifting into Gemini for next week, but Uranus has been in Taurus since 2018. It has been forcing us to renovate our foundations, connected to values, safety, money, the nervous system, the material plane, our economy, our financial systems, individually reckoning with belonging, the land, our nervous systems, safety, security. Taurus rules the body. It rules money and resources. It's connected to the second house. It's connected to land, self-worth, survival, values. And Venus rules Taurus, so it's been really lovely here. It's been giving us a glimpse into what our values actually are. We've all been undergoing this major renovation. Our values probably look differently than they did in 2018. What is important to us? What do we need? What does real and true safety, security, peace, joy, fulfillment look like? What does belonging look and feel like? We've spent all of June with Venus and Taurus, so we've gotten maybe, hopefully, a little glimpse or a sense or a feel into what we desire, what we need, what feels good, what feels safe, what feels grounding. With Uranus meeting her at the end of this journey, it's going to shake something up. It's going to say, okay, you get to take that with you. You get to take that sense of security and safety. You get to take what has been cultivated internally, but you can't take with you what's inauthentic related to this. As they meet at the edge of Taurus, it's an activation of what we've been learning about embodiment, security. The 29-degree point is deeply karmic as well. So it's closing a longer cycle of relational, financial, and body awakening. This is the point where we release anything that's connected to our maternal lineage that is inauthentic, that's keeping us sheltered, not safe. Taurus is the earth mother. It's the body temple. It's rooted. It does not like change. It likes to be rooted. It likes to be secure. It likes to know it's coming. It likes to have consistency, dependability. Uranus here is disruptive. And when a planet, especially an outer planet, ingresses into a new sign, it is going to force us to look at what work still lies within that realm for each of us individually and collectively. This is all about liberation from inherited survival patterns, from outdated blueprints around love, money, beauty, safety, self-worth. There's an urgency here. Uranus loves change. It needs change. It creates change. It is the ultimate disruptor. Venus is softer. It's more feminine. It's going to, once again, ask for us to befriend the magical nature of the feminine energy and how it not only embraces change, death, and birth, but requires it. So this week, the rest of this year really is about befriending change, going inward to our innate wisdom, our body's technology, the earth's technology that does not resist change, but embraces it. We have the perfect and right programs installed to navigate these times. Is yours turned on or is it dormant? There's simply a switch that needs to be clicked on because we have it. I was talking to a friend this weekend about how intelligent the earth is. And we are the one creature on this planet that has decided we are smarter than this ancient technology that the earth has, that we are more intelligent than the earth, than our mother. And I don't think she's particularly happy with us. We see it time and time again that when we give the earth space, she repairs. She rebirths. She clears what's dead, what no longer needs to be there. And she begins again. She's innately wise in that way. And all of the animals and creatures on the planet are as well. They don't resist change. They embrace it. We have the same inner knowing. So I invite you this week to sit with, what is your relationship to change? We might feel like we are in an exam period. This anaretic degree can feel that way, and I know many of us have felt like that over the last few years. It brings pressure to complete a lesson, to resolve a theme, or to awaken something you've been avoiding, especially around safety and security, attachment to comfort at the cost of growth, belonging, fear of leaving what's stable but no longer aligned, old money stories rooted in lack, shame, scarcity, or ancestral trauma. This is much more about personal relational shifts. You might hear a lot of people talk about your relationships. And yes, of course. But it all begins with our relationship with self, our relationship with the mother, our relationship with source, our relationship with the beginning point. What does it feel like to truly belong? To be safe in your body, to be safe on this planet. We all come from different circumstances, and that looks differently for each and every one of us. So we must reckon with our past in order to create new foundations, new beginnings, new ways of being. This is part of a larger collective karmic unraveling around how we define value, safety, and embodiment in a collapsing world. I've said this so many times, but we are the death doulas for one world, while at the same time being midwives for the new. And we all have an exact, perfect role in that process. We might start to see more shocks or revelations around our financial systems, currency, land use, agriculture, things that are connected to belonging, security, safety, the land, money, our root. We're seeing so much come up around displacement. We have these ancestral reckonings happening around land ownership, belonging. There's a book I really love called Belonging by Tokapa Turner. And when I first started really diving into belonging or work around belonging in 2019, 2020, it was groundbreaking for me. And I think so much of our suffering comes from this disconnection from our roots. And so we're going to see more of these themes coming up, especially with this crisis point of this anaretic degree of Taurus and how Uranus and Venus meet here. This is a feminine liberation point. Yes, we know there's death and decay and there's loss and there's destruction and there's this grieving of what was, but there's also liberation. It may come through rupture before restoration. I always think of a compost bin, how soil needs death in order to grow new things. Life needs death. They're one and the same. And so this conjunction this week is really the final exam in a longer cycle of awakening around safety, security, values, belonging. You might get that official download of where you want to be, where you want to grow roots. I know so many people I'm talking to are craving roots. They're craving belonging. They're looking for a place to really land, to grow a life, to belong to community, to find their people. I think there's been a mass displacement theme over the last 10 years, especially the last 5 years. I think even post-COVID, it's just been, we've sort of been wandering, looking for where we belong. And I do believe over the next year, we're going to start to get the clarity, the assignment. But what's interesting is it's coming from an examination and a reclamation of our values. What do we really want? What do we desire? What's important to us? Let it come from a place of truth and authenticity rather than what's trendy, what's cool, what everyone else is doing. That will no longer work in this new world. Authenticity and intention are everything. So this is a point where we get to reclaim that. We get to reclaim what's real and true for us. Neptune stationing retrograde later that day. And Aries is a wake-up call as well. This is happening, of course, on the US birthday, July 4th. This is a major spiritual inflection point. And Neptune hasn't been in Aries since the Civil War in the 1860s. And we are reckoning with power. There's this general disillusionment with the systems of power and identity. I think as Neptune retrogrades this year, it's going to help us, and especially as Neptune navigates Aries until 2039, we're going to experience this collective and internal reckoning with spiritual delusion, the hero pedestaling people, needing a savior, needing a hero, needing someone to tell us what's real, what's true. This retrograde begins a 5-month internal journey where we have to first reckon with our own internal programs around strength, purpose, courage, power, will, desire, anger, control, ego. Where are we looking to be saved? Where do we believe we cannot save ourselves? Where do we need to pedestal someone and give away our power in order to feel secure? Individually, we're looking at our dependency on systems of control, power, where we hold illusion in our own lives around our own power and will and desire and ego. This is an inner unraveling of the stories we tell ourselves about who we are. And on a collective level, we're facing the grief of a collapsing myth and the new seeding of a new collective mythology, not based on dominance or hierarchy, but on embodiment, on balance, on we the people, and how the US in particular, which I've talked about this in past episodes, but we were the first country to create this system of democracy that's actually worked and held. And many other countries have based their democracies on this one. And we're in our Pluto return still, so we're still reckoning with, does this work? How is it working? Does it need to be adjusted? Or have we gone so far off the path? And in many ways, this feels like a return to what's real. Like, what does we the people actually mean? December, where it remains in Pisces until it crosses a threshold back into Aries with Saturn in tow. So Saturn and Neptune do this work together. They cross a 0 point of Aries next spring. Neptune until then is going to be helping us dissolve illusions. We cannot build a new world on the same infrastructure. We need new beliefs, new ideas, new ways of supporting one another. We need the wisdom of the feminine. Saturn brings structure and form. Neptune brings vision and disillusion. And together, they're building a new architecture of what's sacred. But first, we have to let go of what has been. The false temples, the false idols. This is also going to reveal disembodied spirituality. People that tell you you can only be spiritual, you can only be evolved if you listen to their dogma, or if you do plant medicine, or the spiritual narcissism that we see infiltrating the spiritual community. The false idols who identify as prophets or gurus, or that require you to bend the knee or to give away your power to them, even in the most subtle, manipulative ways. This time is about each one of us individually accessing our connection to Source, our connection to our power, our connection to truth, and bringing that to our ecosystem, our community. Bring our own unique gifts to what is needed within that community. We're going to have to reckon with, thankfully, this focus on this hyper-individualism, pushing walls masked as boundaries. Think of the skyscraper just reaching without tending to the soil, tending to the larger ecosystem, tending to the community. This desire to go higher, to go to new planets, instead of tending to the one that we're on. We're going to continue to reckon with this colonial mindset, this obsession with conquest, and not just physically, but also spiritually, this desire to go higher and higher, to reach further without integrating and going deeper. So we're moving into the initiated warrior, the conscious warrior archetype, Saturn in Aries, who doesn't seek domination or power or control through the ego, but instead protects what's sacred, what's holy, who can be with their anger and their rage in a healthy, embodied way, who can work with sacred boundaries rather than walls. And Neptune in Aries is the embodied mystic. The highest expression of that archetype is someone who can dream, not for escape, but for reclamation, who can dissolve limits while still honoring boundaries. So as Neptune stations retrograde, we're going to have to start reckoning with the parts of us that resist these internal archetypes, so we can embody them and step into them more over the next 10 years. This is a long journey. This is a marathon. This is not a sprint. So you might feel a lot of urgency this week, but just know that small doable bits. I talk about that a lot in my alchemical alignment training, is just small doable bits. Be with what's here right now and allow yourself to sink in and lean into that work. This is not a race. That's the ego. The card that I pulled today from the Untamed Elemental deck is the Lava card. And it's all about courage. Volcanoes are portals to the heart of our earth, ablaze with emotional fire. When they erupt, lava pours forth, covering the old and outdated while forging new pathways. Lava scorches everything in her path, a searing field of anger. But when she cools, she forms dynamic new landscapes that are fertilized by nutrient-rich ash. Lava guides you to locate the fiery core within yourself. This period of change and transformation requires courage. It's important to access your internal magma and the deep desire that brought you where you are. You must hold yourself steady while old and unuseful paths and ideas are consumed around you. Once your molten courage cools, the past is simply a prologue, and the future transforms into a lush and fertile landscape, waiting for something new to take root and thrive. When it's balanced, you might feel determined or courageous. When it's imbalanced, you might feel averse to experiencing the intensity of life. To bring into balance, have a ceremony and ask nature for inspiration, guidance, and guardianship. Well, that could not be more spot on and accurate, as always. I'm thankful for the alignment of these messages, and so much has been coming up over the last few months around the feminine and the underworld, and how feminine work is actually depth work and going down and inward, and how we so desperately need to befriend, embody, and become more intimate with the process of descent. And that is exactly what we do in the mentorship container. This is my favorite way to work with clients. We do descent work and depth work. We go into the layers that are calling to integrate and to illuminate what's there, to bring forth embodiment and trust and faith. And then we create healthy boundaries, structures, support systems that enable you to stay within your depths, to grow and evolve in ways that are supportive of true transformation and growth. In this container, we weave evolutionary astrology, somatic healing, quantum healing. So there's a lot of different layers to this, and it's all particularly attuned to you and your process and where you are currently. I have one space left for July. I won't launch this again until probably late fall. So I would love to connect with you if this is something you've been sitting with or thinking about. I always find that this lands for people at the exact perfect time. So if it's not landing for you, it's okay. It might in the future. But if it is, now might be a beautiful time. So I have a few clarity calls open for the next few weeks, and I'm so grateful you're here. Thank you for being. Thank you for, as always, bringing your wisdom, your courage, your truth, your power, your receptivity to this. As always, take what resonates, release what does not. And I will see you next week.